Welcome back. Okay, this is kind of an important lesson. I want you to be empowered to create your own brushes. So I very often photograph things that I know might make an interesting brush or background for an image. Very often, particularly when I'm photographing the New Forest ponies for a project, they are not always in the perfect backdrop. You know, that's real life. If you're photographing situations, quite often you find that your subject isn't where you want them at the moment when you want to take the picture. So one of the things I do is if I see something interesting, I'll photograph it and turn it into a brush. So here we go. Here's my tree. I've duplicated my layer as usual. And I'm just going to simply sit on the layer and say select subject. Now, something I would point out is Photoshop needs a lot of contrast. So you don't want to be photographing, for example, a tree against a dark background. It will struggle to cut it out and make life very difficult for you. So I've deliberately taken this photograph against a very grey monochrome sky. Now, something I notice if I zoom in a little bit is this image at 200% zoom, there's going to be quite a few branches that haven't got enough black in them to really come out nice and sharp on my brush. So I'm going to say Command or Control D to deselect. Let's just come out of there and pop into a camera raw filter to bump up those blacks. I'm not going to bother using a smart filter or smart objects because I am going to destroy this image anyway. So let's just go into camera raw filter and we have a backup copy. So if it all goes horribly wrong, we can get back. Let's drag up the contrast a little bit, not too much. And I want the blacks up, because not too much, because I don't want that background blending in to my tree too much. So I'm not going to go too mad, just let's add a little tiny bit. Pop the whites up. So we're creating a nice bit of contrast. All the shadows out because I want to be able to get rid of that background relatively easily. Push the blacks a little bit now. We've got the two separated a bit. So that will probably do me. Let's zoom in here a little bit and have a look. So there's a lot more depth to the black that's forming the tree branches now. And we've got quite a bit more contrast between it and the background, which is what I really wanted. So I'm going to say, yep, that's okay. I think we can work with that. Okay, let's try again. So select subject. Let's see what it gives us this time. That's okay. That's my brush you can see over there, the big circle. So I'm going to say, okay, let's stick that on a mask. Now, as you can see, we've got all of this white around and we've got the white behind the tree, which is an absolute pain. We don't want that. And it's also put it on a transparent background. So we can only see transparency because the layer underneath is currently turned off. So if you're still confused about layers and layer masks, and I wouldn't be surprised because they are a nightmare when you first start, let's turn that layer on underneath. And now, of course, you can see the background that on this layer is covered under an invisibility cloak. So let's turn that one off. So what I like to do is put white under my cutout so I can see what I'm doing. So the shortcut for that is Shift and Delete, which gives us the fill box, the same fill box if you went Edit and came down to Fill. So it's saying contents white. Thank you very much. Oh, we're on the wrong layer. So let's come up here, do that again, Shift Delete. Okay. And I actually, I need a blank layer. Sorry. There we go. That's me making mistakes. So I need a blank layer to fill. Otherwise, it will fill the layer you're on. So there you go. It's a lesson. So we create a transparent layer, which goes above and go Shift Delete, add white. And I'm going to drag that underneath, mainly so I can just see what I'm looking at. Now, here's a little trick for you that's really helpful. If you could faff about now going into select and mask, and you could try and get rid of this background by using your feather and your contrast and shifting your edge. It's not going to be easy and you're probably going to lose half the tree. So let's come out of here. Here is another way of doing this. If you do a right click on the tree layer and say blending options, you are going to notice a little panel at the bottom here saying blend if. Behind this tree, I've deliberately taken this picture against that whitey sky because I know if I've got grey, I can use this blend if grey. So I'm going to pull this slider. I'm on the top layer and my underlying layer is white because it needs something to blend with. So I'm going to drag this top slider because we're on the current layer and I'm going to drag it to the left. And if you watch my screen, I'll go back, watch the screen on the canvas and watch that disappearing, because what it's doing is saying, I'll blend it if it's grey. The tree is black because we've gone into a camera raw filter and made it a lot darker. The background behind it was grey. We fixed that and made that more grey and white when we went into the camera raw filter. And so when we then put a white layer underneath, it can blend it. It can now blend that grey with the white. So now we're now seeing is white. I'm just going to go a bit further because I kind of like this, but I don't like this. It's just a bit too much. So it's kind of like, you know, working out what you want. And don't forget, this is going to be a brush. So you can always, you're going to be decorating your brush. It's going to be part of another image. It's not going to be a photograph on its own. So that's going to do me for this cutout. I'm going to say yes. I don't like this bit over here. So I'm going to come onto my layer mask and I'm just going to paint black on that. Let me just bump up my opacity and my flow on the brush and we're going to paint that out. So what you can now do is come in and tidy up anything you don't like. So I come in pretty tight. I really want a much harder line. I don't like the way that's all soft. So let's just grab a harder brush. So thanks very much. And tap these messy, edgy bits out that we don't want in our brush. So come in, do a tidy up job, tidy up the edges. You might decide there's whole sections you want to get rid of. You only want a part of your tree or whatever it is you're working on. So this is the moment now. You can actually shape this to however you want it. So you might want to get rid of this. You might think, no, that looks messy. Let's just tap it out. So the key point here is brushes need to be black on a white or transparent background. You don't need it to be transparent, but you don't need it to be white either. Either is fine. So you've got your cutout, and I'm now going to actually say, I want to cut this out. So I'm going to apply this layer mask. So I'm going to right click and say, where's my apply layer mask button disappeared to? Hang on a second. There we go, apply layer mask. I was on the whole layer. I needed to be actually on the mask and say apply layer mask. And so what you can see it's now done is that's all we've got. The background has now completely disappeared because I don't want all that other stuff there when I cut this out. So I'm now going to actually make a selection. So I'm going to select with my marquee tool. I'm going to come round, select this, and then I'm going to say edit, define brush preset, and I'm going to say tree brush for tutorial. And there you can see there is the brush. It's showing us what it's actually creating. So let's say okay. And there it is, one brush. So let's give ourselves a blank layer to play with. So I've created a transparent layer this time and actually remembered to do that. I'm going to say shift delete, fill it with white, and I'm going to make this brush smaller. Just like any other brush now, you control it in exactly the same way. The square bracket key is making it smaller. I'm going to change the colour and let's have a red brush and test it. And there you go, one brush. And you can do that with anything. So let's just turn these layers off. So you could have, oh, I can't get rid of I need to turn it on to delete it. Hold on. Let's just delete that one. Yes. You could have actually cut out the entirety of this tree. Let's duplicate it again to show you. So here's our tree again. We zoom out rather. Here's our tree layer open. We could actually have included in our cutout part of the bottom of this tree. So let's just go back up and show you how to do that. Get rid of that. So I would go select subject. And then I'd mask it exactly the same way as usual, using my mask icon over here. This is exactly the same. This mask works exactly the same as any other mask. I have currently got everything under an invisibility cloak. We could only see the background still because the layer underneath was turned on. So I've just turned it off. Come onto the mask, grab your brush, and we need to paint white to reveal. So let's put a bit of this landscape at the bottom of the image back in. So I'm going to actually, I don't know why this image is smaller than it was. Let's make it bigger again to fill the rest of the screen. And there we go. Let's put our white layer underneath. So we're going to say new layer, please. Fill it with white. Drag the white underneath. And so I'm now going to say, let's see if we can get this to blend. I haven't gone into camera raw this time, so it's probably not going to work quite so well. Let's just drag that down. So we've got a bit of detail from the bushes this time. I've dragged blend if grey. I've dragged that icon up a little bit further to get that effect. I'm going to say OK. I'm going to apply the layer mask. So I'm on the layer mask, right click, apply layer mask. So that's all there is now. We've ditched the rest of the image. And then I'm using the rectangular marquee tool to come down and select what is going to be my brush. Edit, define brush preset, sample, practice brush 2. I can't remember what I called the first one. Practice brush 2, even. And let's get another blank piece of paper to play with and see what it looks like. Let's just make it a bit smaller. Oh, it's because I've got my marquee tool still selected. That's why I've got that funny cutout. There we go. So now you have the bush as well. And you could, if you wanted to go and make it grey. Oh, still red. Use a different colour. There we go. So you can change your colour. And of course, we can colour these brushes in and mix them with other textures and layers as well. But this is how you make a brush out of your own images. So if you've got a car or a flower or whatever it is you want to use, you can bring it into Photoshop, follow these easy steps and make loads of your own brushes without paying a penny for them. So I have included in the resources pack a step-by-step guide to do this. And one final thing I would just add is if you come to edit, define brush preset and it's grayed out, it's probably because the image is too big. So I think they need to be under 3000 pixels square for it to work. If it is too big, if you just come to image size, there we go. Image size, you can reduce your image there to make it small enough for this to work. So that is making brushes. Have some fun, have some practice. I will share my tree image with you in your resources pack so you can practice cutting it out. Remember to use the camera raw to make the image contrasty enough. And remember that you do a left or right mouse click on the image layer to get your blending options, which is where you'll find blend if, the grey, and you can practice with those sliders getting rid of the background. Okay, so that is making a brush. I will see you in the next lesson. Have some fun. See you there.